Hey there, welcome. Um, I'm going to jump right in. I had another interesting and inspiring conversation with a friend about um, a human design report that I had shared with them. And I don't like calling them reports. I'm working on coming up with a much more interesting name for these. But something that this person said to me is common among many people, maybe even most of us who come across human design for the first time. And it was definitely an experience that I had. So she said, "Thank you so much for sharing this. This is so interesting. And to be honest, it's really overwhelming." So I just want to tell you right now, yes, the information that you get about your design, should you go seeking it out, is going to be a whole bunch of stuff: words, images, numbers, glyphs. And it is overwhelming, um, meaning that it can be like being handed a whole bunch of books and maps and mathematical formulas with no instruction about how to use them. So, what I would like to say is that, first of all, if this is your experience, understand that we're not supposed to get through that human design information in one go. You do not have to figure that stuff out. You do not have to figure yourself out in one go. It's supposed to be an experiment. So you can, this is my recommendation, take one element of your human design. If it's astrology that you're into, work with your astrological patterns. If it's the gene keys that you're into, work with your gene keys. If it is the Kabbalah that you are curious about or experienced with, go in and look at the Kabbalah information. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced several different ways depending upon who I am learning from. So I just want to say that this conversation is not about human design, actually. It's about sidereal astrology and why I feel like it's so valuable right now. But I wanted to start with that human design because um, people, we like understanding ourselves better. Some of us do. And for those of us who do like that kind of information and spend any amount of time trying to understand how we work and how other people work in our lives, human design is a very useful, very deep and rich source of self-understanding and other understanding. So I encourage you to, I'm going to say it this way, to do the work that it takes for you to make some kind of meaningful sense of your design and your signatures. And don't let the overabundance of information on those readouts, those reports, in a consultation, don't let that be the reason that you don't find a way in to your information. Okay, so let's put the human design away as a topic, but we are going to talk about sidereal. And here's the thing about me and sidereal. So I find it really interesting that we have grown up on tropical astrology, and I haven't come across the person, place, or piece of information that can help me understand why, like officially, why we've been trained to look at tropical and not sidereal. And you guys, maybe you're starting to pick up on how I like to go straight for the punchline, which I didn't do in this one, and I apologize. But the punchline of this conversation is, I believe that getting to know your cosmological signatures through the sidereal lens at this point in time in our human story, I believe that that is one of the, I actually don't know if I want to say one of the most valuable symbolic efforts or efforts into symbolic literacy that you can do. But so I just said it. If you are someone who likes to study symbolic like if you like to understand symbols and have some sort of fluency in recognizing the archetypal and symbolic nature of things, if you have spent time with your astrological story, if you have spent time with your human design story, looking at yourself through the lens of the sky that is active right now, and by right now I mean in your lifetime, will give you a different perspective, will give you different information about yourself that I believe is highly relevant at this time for us as individuals and us in the collective story. And that is why I believe that's why I am interested in helping people find their way into this information. Okay. I could probably stop there, but I'm going to go ahead and add this piece in because this seems to be another page in this book that I'm working on right now. And that is the story of tropical. So some interesting things about the tropical system, and understand that I'm still not at the point where I'm saying that the tropical system is wrong, or that sidereal is better. I'm not putting them in opposition with one another. In my understanding of my own information, my own cosmological story, constellational story, I can see how my tropical persona has led me to my sidereal expression. And it's very interesting to me. And that is part of the work that I'm doing right now, is to understand that and bring my story more fully to life. Again, this is also something I want to help other people do, is bring your story more fully to life. And symbolism, our symbolic expression, those have just been very important tools for me in my life. And I continue to find them very valuable and important. The tropical system has us looking back in the past. We don't recognize it because I'm still wrapping my head around what it means to be relating with the planets and stars in now time. Even though the things like aspects and houses and that sort of foundational language in astrology doesn't seem to shift when we're looking at the constellational sky. And by constellational, I mean like the constellations that are in place in this moment when I pull out a telescope, or when I pull out stellarium, or a written star map, or when I can put my eyeballs on the sky. Like right now, this is where the placements are. Whereas with tropical, the placements are based on where they were a couple thousand years ago. When we are trained and conditioned to look at past expressions, past patterns can be very useful. However, if we are conditioned and trained to repeat past patterns and live out past patterns, we don't get anywhere new. And as I've been looking at people's charts and working through my own, which like it's like working through means like taking like 5 grains of sand out of an entire beach. So I'm not saying I've gotten very far, but I've gotten some really interesting places. But when the sidereal chart, in my experience, looking at myself and looking at the people that I have been consulting with, the sidereal chart is it's like an evolution, a maturation, a deepening of expression and experience. It's like taking the tools that we developed in our youth and in childhood, and I'm speaking of like metaphorical youth and childhood, as well as literal. But what I'm saying is, it's like the tropical expression was training wheels for whatever the sidereal experience is desired to be at a soul level. So it is difficult for people to acknowledge our tropical identity. Again, for those of us who have had any length of time having any amount of interest in star charts, we can have a tendency to get attached. I'm a this, I'm a that. My such and such is opposed to such and such. My so and so is sitting in mutual reception in the temple of or the house of whomever. Like we get heavily identified with what our personality signatures are, both psychologically. You know, if I consider myself to be an introvert and suddenly I start having extroverted interests, I might lean back into my introvertedness instead of recognizing the invitation to develop a new skill set. I see the same opportunities moving from tropical into sidereal. It's not that they have to be in opposition. I do wonder, and I think I can say I'm beginning to believe that these times are very appropriate for a sidereal awakening. And some people will say sidereal or sidereal. I don't, again, depending upon who I've studied with, I've heard it pronounced different ways. So I just want to throw that in there for you if you're hearing it pronounced different ways. There's a reason why I said that. Somebody in my world explained to me that they are seeing a lot more talk about sidereal, which is very interesting to me. And I think it's very appropriate as part of this whole apocalyptic experience that we're in. And if you haven't gone and looked up the origin of the word apocalypse, it's a beautiful word. I encourage you to go look that word up. And if you've had a fear conditioned relationship with that word, it is a fearsome word. It is a fearsome experience. But what it actually is etymologically and verbally is much bigger than what some of us have been trained through religion to believe about it. And one of the original definitions or meanings of that word is the lifting of the veils, or the lifting of the veil, depending upon where we're getting that source from. But anyway, it's the idea of sight and seeing and understanding and recognition. And I won't put any more language on that because I also believe there's the big picture experience of it, and then there's our inner independent experience of it. So we are in a time where a lot is being revealed to us. Revelation, revelation and apocalypse, depending upon what Bible system you grew up with. For those, for my Bible babies out there, I am a Bible baby. So yeah, the it makes sense to me that the tropical system would be encouraged. First of all, it's easy to dismiss it. So tons of people dismiss astrology because of so many reasons, for so many reasons. And I'm pretty sure that every single one of us listening to this recording can think of someone in our lives who just, dismisses astrology, no questions asked, just like not interested, don't believe in it, that's a bunch of garbage. And it's easy to dismiss it. Because a lot of it that we're exposed to does hang out on the surface level. But this tradition goes very, very deep, and people at very, very high levels of society of all kinds, including religion, tap into astrological knowledge as a practice. So I'll say it this way. There are enough historical accounts of people in high places relying on astrological counsel to make their decisions, while the folks in the not so high places in society, like the rest of us, have been encouraged to not believe in it. So there's one thing. Tropical astrology is focused on the past. It's focused on a sky that's 2,000 years behind us. And it's very interesting to me what we would begin to understand and pay attention to if we turned our attention to today's sky and who we are in relation to today's sky. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but that's a fairy or a foghorn or some lovely, delicious water sound. I love it. So I'm not sure if I'm able to communicate this as clearly as I would like to. It's a thought. It's something that I'm considering. I know there are other people out there considering this as well, although I haven't had those conversations with other people. So if you have thoughts on this, please feel free. Again, I encourage people to speak in the comments, and I am going to continue to develop this conversation out because it's interesting to me, and I also feel like it's going to be useful to more of us to develop proficiency with these symbolic languages. And astrology is a symbolic language. And when I say symbolic, I do mean physically useful. I do mean applicable to our day-to-day embodied lives. I'm not just speaking of something that lives in our heads. I am speaking about learning how to relate with the symbolic world, the non-physical or perhaps metaphysical experiences of life, and bring them into some sort of somatic relationship, so body-based relationship, so that we can move that information, that knowledge and wisdom out into the world through our lives. That is what I believe that reality is for, that symbolic reality. I believe that it's not just for our use, because there's worlds upon worlds upon worlds out there, and we're not the only beings active in the worlds. But for our purposes, in the world that we inhabit, this non-physical, more than human reality is accessible to us if we pay attention to it and engage with it with respect, and then bring it through our system and our lives into some kind of form. I'm thinking of the Magician card in Tarot as an example, taking the elements and moving it through the body. So these core resources of energy, and moving them through the body and creating something in the manifest world. That is what I believe we can learn to do when we can understand what symbolism is speaking to us, what non-human or more than human wisdom or trickery, like there's the coyote element, the rabbit element of life as well, trickster. But we can engage with these things. And with all that is changing and with all that will continue to change here on earth as it is in heaven, I have to add that in because it seems appropriate. We are meant to create, co-create, and collaborate with this world. So I encourage you to bring your mind, bring your body, bring your system into present day and get to know yourself from the sidereal perspective. There's an app called Stellarium. It is free in the Play Store, and it is also free for laptops, desktops, so you can download it, Stellarium. And you can take a look at the sky present day. You can also go back in time, and I think you can go forward in time as well, and look at the sky across a timeline. But if you don't have a telescope, that's a really good way to start befriending the constellations in present time. And then take a look at your star chart and your human design from the sidereal perspective. It will be different. And if you see yourself recoiling from that difference, just ask yourself, what is it about this that's upsetting to me? And spend as much time as you need to. I was introduced to my human design chart many years ago, and I did not know what to do with it. It was a bunch of gobbledygook. And I actually felt, I think, a little frustrated with it. It was not until in later years I came across the gene keys. I was introduced to the gene keys, and I had already fallen in love with the I Ching. And those two systems made sense to me. And through those systems, I was able to start talking with my human design chart in a way that I could work with. There are layers and levels to that chart that I won't ever get into. There's layers and levels of my astrological chart I will not ever get into. And the same is true for you. There are so many different ways to consult those systems that no one person can get at all of the information. It's one of the reasons why it's great that there's so many different people doing the readings, because we have different access points and different interests, and we will bring different parts of these systems to life. So if you're someone out there thinking of studying it, you're not going to get all of it, but go in on the window that appeals to you, that speaks to you, that is interesting to you, and follow that thread for wherever it takes you. Follow it, see where it takes you. Okay. This is something I will continue to talk about this topic. So this might have been like an initial brain dump, hopefully you got something useful out of it. Please, whatever it is, take it and run with it, develop something and bring it back and share it. Um, yeah, yep, it's a conversation. I'll continue. So I'm going to close this out for now. Thank you for listening, and happy Easter, everyone. It's coming up. That's this weekend.